You stated that early on you were challenged to read the Bible and that you recognized it as truth, scientific and historical truth filled. Was this after a rigorous study of other religious backgrounds? And do you know anything about other religious backgrounds? And have others from those faiths attempted to point to the scientific truths and historical truths within their religious faiths?
Sure. As I mentioned, my greatest exposure to any religion was to Islam through my father. And so I was pretty familiar with what Islam taught. And there was a point as a teenager where I began to explore Islam for about 1.5 years. And this was primarily motivated more from trying to connect with my roots more so than a religious need, so to speak. But I basically, under my father's tutelage, learned how to pray and began to read the Quran. And after about a year or so, basically gave it up. And there's a number of reasons, but to me, reading the Quran was a very frustrating experience. It was extremely esoteric. It was just a series of declarations that in large measure appeared to be meaningless to me. And the ritualistic aspect of Islam was extremely burdensome. And so I just kind of gave it up because of that. But I was pretty familiar with what Islam taught. When I came to the recognition that there was a creator, or came to that conviction, I actually began to go down a path of universalism, where I basically looked at all the religions of the world as being true, and kind of felt that God revealed himself to different ways, to different people at different times. And what I was looking at was essentially the common moral teaching that most religions of the world embrace. And from that, I figured these had to be true. And it was essentially an unsophisticated view of the world's religions because I had no religious training. This was something that I kind of arrived at on my own. And it kind of makes sense, too. My father was a Muslim. My mother came from a Catholic background. So how do you bring this all together? How do you make sense of that? And that was essentially how I was progressing. And it was just through interactions that I had with Christians and through the Scripture that I just came to the conviction that the Christian faith to me seems to be true. It was a religious intuition or experience more so than a rigorous comparison of all the world's religions. But having said that, this approach that we're talking about tonight can be used to evaluate the world's religions. You can take the holy books of the different religions of the world and develop different types of models. You can develop historical models. You can develop scientific models. You can, from those teachings, you can develop, tests of logical coherency. Are these religions free of contradictions in their writings? And so those are ways that you can evaluate the different religions of the world. And in fact, I would encourage people to take that approach. I never did, but it was more my immaturity and naivety as a young man more so than anything else.